This week on the podcast, we are back traveling the Caribbean as we hang out with Jack and crew for the fourth installment of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise on Stranger Tides. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Dissect That Film podcast, where we dissect the good, the bad, and the ugly of your favorite films and film franchises. I am your host, Brett Parker. Joining me, as always, my wonderful co-host, Dan and Angela of DNA Gaming.
Hello.
How's it going?
Hello! Perfect. 7 times a charm. No, just kidding. So, we are back talking about Pirates of the Caribbean. We took a little detour last week talking about a movie that's very different from this franchise, but we're back because we got 2 more of these to talk about before we travel into wherever the hell we're going coming up. So, Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides was released on May 7th, 2011 at Disneyland, because they always gotta premiere these things at Disneyland first, because of course that's where it originated. Everybody gotta show the love. Mm-hmm. It was released to everybody else on May 20th, 2011. Had a budget. So Wikipedia, of course, you take it with a grain of salt. So it says here, which is the first time I've ever seen Wikipedia do this, where it says budget. It says $410.6 million gross with a $378.5 million net. That doesn't make any sense. You're telling me this movie cost $400 million to make? I don't think so. From what I've seen, it's under $200 million because they actually had to spend less money on this one compared to the third one because of the 2008 market crash and all that, and so they really had to, I guess, not, because the last one was over $300 million for the budget, so which is crazy. So according to IMDb, the budget was estimated at $250 million. Opening weekend made $90 million and overall grossed $1.04 billion at the box office, becoming the second highest grossing Pirates of the Caribbean movie and the third highest grossing film of 2011.
That's disappointing.
It's very disappointing, especially when we get to our thoughts on this one. But yeah, this one was also written by Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio. We're not really going to go into too much detail on them. We've talked about them every single episode because they wrote all these movies. And guess what? They wrote the next one too. So
they just need to hang it up and move on. Yeah,
let's figure something else out, guys. Let's bring a different writer in, okay? This though had a different director because Gore Verbinski. They didn't know they were going to be doing a fourth one until Terry Rossio and Ted Elliott picked up the On Stranger Tides book, which was a book from 1987 that is a lot of the elements of this movie, are taken from that book. The whole Blackbeard storyline, the Fountain of Youth, all that stuff. It's actually also the influence behind the Monkey Island games as well.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I've never read the book, but I've heard good things, and I actually looked at the synopsis of the book itself. It seems like an interesting read. But we have a different director because Gore Verbinski was doing Rango and couldn't get out of that to do this. They actually were, so it was Rango, and then he would do the Lone Ranger, and I guess they tried to work it out to push the release of the Lone Ranger so he could come do this. Dan, what are you doing?
I'm not laughing at you. I'm picking on my wife. Whoever watched the video is gonna get it and watched us. I'm just pretending like I'm smelling, smell something horrible on my fingers, and she's shocked by it. It's because we just made barbecue, and my hands still smell like barbecue. But I was trying to make it seem
at least it smells like that, and not something else.
That's why I was doing it.
No,
I'm sorry.
Yikes.
But on what you said, thank you. As you said, it was Gore Verbinski is his name, right?
Yes.
Because I don't want to fuck this up. Okay.
Yes.
So thank you, Mr. Verbinski, for Rango, because it was a great movie.
Yes.
I wish you were here for this one, but we understand.
But we don't want to thank you for the Lone Ranger.
I never watched that.
Because we don't have to.
That's fair.
It's fine.
Well, just pass.
But we got Johnny Depp back. This is like the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie where Jack Sparrow is like the focal point. Like he is the main character. Where in the original trilogy, he was a big part of the story, but there was so many of these characters that were playing such big parts throughout the movie that he wasn't really the standout. But also this just felt like this was definitely just a side story. This really didn't have any connection slightly to anything other than like they'll reference the Black Pearl, reference certain things from the prior movie. But yeah, it kind of just feels like an episode of like the Adventures of Jack Sparrow. What's he doing now?
Saturday morning cartoon or like a made-for-TV movie.
So like I said, Johnny Depp comes back as Jack Sparrow. We got Penelope Cruz, who was pregnant this entire production, if you could not tell. There was a lot of her shots were very close up, and then any shot that was far, like kind of from a distance where you see her whole body, not her. But she, I guess, signed on to this movie without even reading the script, and Johnny Depp, I guess, did the same. And this would be a reunion for Johnny Depp and Penelope Cruz because they actually were in the movie Blow together back in 2001, I believe, which is a great movie.
Never seen it, but heard of.
Ian McShane is in this as Blackbeard, which I have a lot of things to say about him. Jeffrey Rush is back as Barbossa, and we have Kevin R. McNally coming back as Gibbs. That's kind of our core returning cast. Was McNally, Jeffrey Rush, and Johnny Depp. Those were the core. The Johnny Depp and McNally have been in all of them. So as of right now, this is a movie like I remember seeing, but like there's just like recently seeing it, I'm like remembering certain things. I'm like, oh, that a lot of these guys aren't in this movie. Like a lot of the people that I thought were in all the movies, yeah, they're not in this one. There's a lot of missing pieces in this movie, and the reason behind it is kind of dumb.
Oh, well, I mean, in movie, I thought there was. Is this like on screen reason or behind the scenes?
I don't know. I didn't really look into that. I just know, like, based on the story that Barbossa tells about how, the events of his situation happen. It's a weird one. This one was an hour and 17 minutes. It's the shortest runtime for a Pirates of the Caribbean movie, which is still too long.
Yep.
Because this felt the 2 hours and 17 minutes.
And then some.
Which is crazy because we just talked about the longest Pirates of the Caribbean movie, which almost was 2 hours and 49 minutes, and it didn't feel it. So, yeah. This is, at the time, this was one of the most expensive movies ever made. I guess, like I stated, the estimated gross or estimated budget was $250 million, but I guess with all the effects and then they also shot this in 3D, as I have my 3D copy of it back there. I guess it was close to $400 million. So I guess when I was saying like, oh, that can't be right. No, I guess with all that bloated, just extra shit that probably didn't need to happen. Here's my thing. Movies like this don't need to be in 3D. And to be honest, 3D is such a terrible gimmick that we should have figured out didn't work very well when they started doing it in the 80s.
And the 50s.
I mean, to be honest, probably the 50s was probably like that decade where it probably worked out the best.
Like, guys, this shit ain't gonna pan out.
Yeah, and then it came back. This was like the time because like Avatar came out 2 years before this. That was a big deal in 3D, and to be honest, that was probably one of the best movies I've seen in 3D because of the fact it's not actually live action. It's kind of it's all CG, so the effects just look better. Live action movies like this, they just don't need to be that way. All right. I don't need to go see Pirates of the Caribbean 3D. And then you might ask, well, why do you have the 3D copy of the movie? Because I'm an idiot. And I always bought the dumbest versions of movies. You know how many 3D movies I have that I've never watched in 3D because I never had a 3D TV. And they were more expensive than the actual regular versions of them.
Oh, yeah, they were, man. Gotta make that dime.
Golly. Yes, I made poor decisions in my movie buying back in the day.
Been there.
But yeah, I mean, so this was the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie that wasn't shot in the Caribbean. A lot of Caribbean islands they used in the prior 3 movies. This one was filmed all in Hawaii. I was hoping they would like film it in Florida and just like, because that's where the actual Fountain of Youth is.
Yeah, exactly. Like
in quotations. It's in St. Augustine for anyone who wants to go visit the Fountain of Youth and drink some water out of a plastic cup. Go to St. Augustine, Fountain of Youth.
I just want to go into the Everglades and like steal invasive species. That's what I want to do when I go to Florida.
Dude, I follow a guy on TikTok who does that. He literally just like walks through the Everglades to try to find Burmese pythons. And I'm like, all right, man. That's
I just want to go.
You go and you bring back a snake and you're living by yourself.
I thought you like snakes.
I'm not living with a python.
Not a python. I mean, I just want to like, this isn't supposed to be here. You have no rights because we made them. We patented them.
I don't care about.
I just want to make a Jurassic Park reference. I don't have the fucking shirt on. Come on, it's Jurassic Park 2.
As we're recording this, it is the 30th anniversary of Jurassic Park. So,
yeah, we didn't watch it, so stick it to the man. We're not conformists.
How dare you?
We're gonna watch it when we do the thing. That's what we're gonna watch.
We do the thing that we haven't recorded yet.
That's what I said. We do the thing.
Yep.
I'm being vague.
So the actress who played Serena, the mermaid, Astrid, I'm gonna try my best to pronounce her name. She is Spanish. Astrid Burgess Fresbe. She didn't know any English at the time that she got cast in this movie, but she was personally picked by Rob Marshall, the director, who we also haven't talked about yet. This would be his first of 2 mermaid movies that he's done in his career because he is the director of the new 2023 The Little Mermaid. So
interesting. Wow. Interesting. I also have things to say about that.
But yeah, he's done. He directed his first film was Chicago back in 2002, Memoirs of a Geisha, Into the Woods, which is another musical. He did Mary Poppins Returns back in 2018, and then of course Little Mermaid in 2023.
Looking at me.
How did this dude? Listen, I don't even like musicals. How did this motherfucker do Chicago and then do this and then do Little Mermaid? I want to know, like, it's like I don't know. I don't.
Mary Poppins.
I'm not even
Mary Poppins Returns was pretty fun. I enjoyed that movie.
They should have just made it like all those other movies, just the Revenge of Mary Poppins. She goes back and starts killing delinquent children. I mean, fuck. There you go. There's an idea. Whoever makes that movie, just say, "Hey, I got that idea from fucking Dissect That Film." That's all we want.
That's awesome. Well, yeah. So yeah, that's it. There's really not a lot we can talk about with this movie, like behind the scenes. But so let's talk about our thoughts on this movie before we jump into the plot. So let's start off with Angela because she looks like she wants to say something.
Tell us all about it. Mountain Dew Zero Sugar.
They should have just stopped with the third one, not done this one, because it did not feel like I know, money.
I can't hear you through all this money.
But it did not.
We're Disney. We like money.
Yeah, yes, that's the only reason. It did not feel like a pirate movie to me. Not like what the first 3 have been. Like it could have been its own. It could have been its own entity by itself, and it would have made more sense. I did not like Penelope Cruz in this, and I love Penelope Cruz. I did not like her character. Like, you don't know your dad, then you like your dad, then you don't like your dad, then you like your dad, and then you're like...
Yeah, her journey was very confusing.
Fuck.
Very confusing.
Especially at the end.
What are we doing here?
Like, what the fuck? Like, what... No, we'll get to it at that. I did like Blackbeard. Just because I like Blackbeard, the story. I don't know how I missed Well, I probably fell asleep. No,
Yeah, you did.
This was one of those that I fell asleep because it was boring. It was not because I was sleepy. I fell asleep because I was bored.
All right.
So, like, I don't know how I missed Judi Dench, but whatever.
She was just like real quick
Okay.
though.
She was just, yeah.
I mean-
I put her in my notes. I forgot. I was like, wait, is that Judi Dench?
That's what I thought when I
Judi
saw it. I was
Dench?
like,
what are you doing here?
But yeah, I just thought it was unnecessary.
All right.
Jen has things to say.
This movie was the epitome of just mediocrity. Like it like just to take a quote from a more intelligent person than myself, Richard Hammond from Top Gear.
I was about to say,
This movie it's not bad. It's so boring, or it's so just meh that it suffers the old. It'd be more interesting if it was a bad movie than this movie.
Yeah,
it's just so like it's going on, and I don't even enjoy the portrayal of most of the characters. Something seems off about most of this. Like I know it's the director. No offense to him. Honestly, I didn't care about like. There are select scenes in this movie that I liked, like the main when you see the mermaids for the first time. I like that scene. I like really when cool. You find out when Jack and Barbossa get to actually speak when they're tied up, whatever later. Yeah. Like that at that point, Barbossa felt more like himself, and like it felt like a genuine moment. Like he had a motivation to fucking do something. But other than that, it's just like I didn't care for most of his characters. I felt like what you talked about earlier in the movie, the reviews or videos we did, or podcasts we recorded, that Jack just feels weird in these later movies. He feels less and less like himself as these movies go on, or he's not acted as well as these movies go on. There were the inclusions of these new characters that were really a throwaway. Blackbeard wasn't interesting. I like his aesthetic, but I didn't care for his character. I hated Penelope Cruz because she didn't know what the fuck she wanted to do. She was flip-flopping all the damn time. Like, you knew your dad's a piece of shit. He's a piece of shit. You don't have to cover for him. It's fine. He sucks. Even when he fucks you over, he still sucks. But anyway, it's just that's it. And then I didn't like Blackbeard like as his thing. It's like unlike other magical or enhanced characters or mystical characters, he's got a sword and his ship does magic. Why? Because he's Blackbeard. There's your explanation. Like most everything else was told because of, there's this old tale of this. Yeah. There was nothing. Blackbeard was a bad pirate. He kills other pirates. That was your explanation.
Yeah.
Also,
where the fuck was he? Like, we heard nothing about Blackbeard in the first 3 movies. And if he's this much of a bad pirate, like if he is as bad as he's supposed to be, why does no one talk about him? Why is there not even a mention of him as like, especially when we literally, the last movie was about a bunch, like literally all the pirates from like all over the world, like joining together. It's like, maybe he's the outsider because he does his own thing and he is probably the, seen as like the most ruthless of the pirates. But to be honest, I said it in the first episode that we did on Pirates of the Caribbean. I called this movie. I knew exactly where this movie was going to go. Like I said, I'd never read the On Stranger Tides book, which is what this movie is slightly based on. I literally said after I watched At World's End, I was like, the next one is going to be about Blackbeard and they're going for the Mountain of Youth. As soon as that trailer came out, that's what it was about. I was like, okay.
Damn, you called that.
But also, I've read a lot of books about pirates, and Blackbeard was like one of the most interesting pirates, like real life pirate. And he only died when he was like 35 years old. He wasn't very old. And then you got Ian McShane, who's like 60. Yes. And I'm just very confused. And I was like, maybe if they explain to me. So the whole thing is, so in reality, Blackbeard gets caught, gets beheaded, and then his head is like put at the bow of his ship as kind of like a warning to other pirates, which they make mention of in this movie. Like Jack actually, it's like a something that you could blink and miss the line where he talks about that. And it's like, well, maybe if they explain, maybe because he has like the zombie crew, maybe someone was able to like reattach his head and all that. And then he aged. So it's like way later. Cause like so in reality, he died in like 1720, close to 1720. And this takes place in 1750. So, I mean, I just wish there was some sort of explanation of like, did he get beheaded? Is this like, and like, this is just kind of some sort of magic that brought him back? But now there's some prop. It's so confusing and so uninteresting that this was one that I got bored watching because certain performances just weren't there. Like Jack is not as weird as he usually is. He's very like straight laced for a lot of stuff. And then you get like moments of him being, know, the old Jack. Gibbs is not in this enough. I like Gibbs a lot, and they just kind of throw him away. Barbosa, I do not like his portrayal in this movie. And the reason why, and the reasoning behind him, dude, he's a badass. Barbosa's a badass, and he is a badass at the end of At World's End, which is my favorite portrayal of Barbosa. I liked him in At World's End more than I liked him in Curse of the Black Pearl. But this one is like, I get I guess them tying it all together of like why he is the way he is in this movie. It's fine because they at least they connected it, but the reasoning is just lame. Like, oh, Blackbeard, he's the worst of the worst. I was like, you literally helped kill Davy Jones, who was like the undead like pirate who literally could like travel anywhere and not die. And I'm just so confused at this whole thing. And yeah, like his power is he's got a really thick ass sword, and which, you know what, the scene is really cool, but also sometimes Ian McShane just looks like he's half asleep doing this performance. He just is like, I'm getting a big paycheck from Disney right now. Penelope Cruz, to be honest, even though I'm not a big fan of her performance, she seems like she cares more than anyone here. She's putting 110% into her performance, but yeah, it's very confusing. Where are you going with this, lady?
Yeah,
what are we doing here?
Her and Gibbs, like even though Gibbs wasn't in it much, she felt like Gibbs. Like he didn't feel like odd, but like I don't know.
Here's the thing about Pirates of the Caribbean, especially the original 3. The side characters are so good. And it's like you got Jack Sparrow, and then you got everyone around him are so interesting. That's what keeps you engaged for these huge runtimes. Like I said, almost 3-hour movie, and I am so engaged in At World's End from beginning to end because every character is interesting to me. Even though, we have our gripes with Will. Wasn't a huge fan of Will, but he was still an interesting character. The side characters here, they're trying to recreate some of those like interesting side characters, but they're just not doing it for me. There was that one guy, I think his name is Scrum. He is like the new like guy who he'll be in the next one too. Spoiler alert. Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. And then you have like, I called him Bible Boy for the whole movie because I did not hear his name until the mermaid said it. And I was like, Philip. Okay. But he was Bible Boy to me. He wasn't interesting. The mermaid, Serena, just could care less. I like the mermaid scene of all the, the attack scene, but the whole thing, I understand what they needed her for and all that. And like things made sense, but they also were just like, I just don't care. I just don't care.
I like the one thing I really enjoyed was what the Spanish did at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that. I was like, yes, give us something in like different. I was not expecting that.
Yep.
So I was like, good for them. But yeah, I agree.
But yeah, Blackbeard.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying Blackbeard's just not an intriguing villain. I mean, he should have been so much cooler. I feel like they could have cast someone else or just like given Ian McShane more to do in this movie. He doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
He does the sword thing once, he does the flamethrower thing, and then he just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, the flamethrower thing's done one time, and then it's never brought up again.
The Queen Anne's Revenge is possibly my favorite ship, other than
the Flying Dutchman.
Flying Dutchman. I love the Flying Dutchman, but yeah, the Queen Anne's Revenge is awesome, and the story behind the actual Queen Anne's Revenge is awesome.
I was gonna say this movie is. I'll go back because I want to state this real fast before I forget. This is the one movie so far out of all of them that I ever like. Is this movie over yet?
Yeah, I was
like the other ones, like you said, they just go like because they're compelling films. This one are just like,
can we stop?
Because when I fell asleep, I was like, gosh, it's got to be almost over. I'm like,
Had like 45 minutes left when you fell asleep, I think.
But then when I woke up, I'm like, it's still going.
Yeah.
Like, come on. And I don't feel like I missed anything.
Yeah.
Like, it went from one thing, I woke back up, and I was like, okay, well, here we go.
The Spanish are here now.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, I remember. I mean, I remember liking it a lot more when I first saw it, and I like I said, I didn't see any of these movies in theaters. I always waited till they really. I don't even think I saw the fifth one until like a couple years after that came out because I was just so disinterested in this franchise after this movie. But yeah, watching it recently, I'm just like, oof. This was a rough watch. This definitely, I mean, it had its good elements. It's definitely not one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I've seen way worse. There are fun parts to this movie, but another thing I want to make big, it doesn't look as crisp as the last two. Like it seemed like we were going back, like they were on. There were times where they looked like they were on sets.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like you have to try to make it so it doesn't look like that. But there are like moments where you're like, this is 100% a set. It doesn't have that like film layer that at World's End had that made it just such an engrossing world where it was just like, okay, we're here and now we're on this set here and then we're on this set here. Even though I know there was a lot of on location shots in this movie because that's what one of those things about this franchise is they do a lot of on location shooting. But yeah, it just didn't look as clean as the other ones. But I know, I mean, even with that budget, I just like what happened here?
It just didn't seem like that. Like that's kind of why, no offense, I point my finger at the director a little bit because even the scene where you get to showcase what the Queen Anne's Revenge does when they let the guy go and they do like they're gonna nuke him with the flamethrowers, it wasn't that exciting. Like I was like. It just how it was presented wasn't nearly as dramatic as like most anything in the previous films, and I wonder if it's because of how strong the third one was, and like what it ended on with Calypso and all that shit, and Davy Jones. Like, where are they gonna go?
Also, did we get an explanation of why he can do that?
What with the boat?
Yeah,
no idea.
I know people complain where they're like, you don't need to always know how something goes. And you're like, but I want to know. I want to know. Like, it doesn't need to be a whole drawn out scene. Just give me some sort of quick thing and be like, hey, I heard. Like, maybe it's not even the real reason, but like the crew, they're, when they're planning their mutiny, they're like talking down, like, oh, I heard that he, signed his soul over to the devil, and that's how he was able to get control of the. Because that is I know that was something that was a rumor about the real Blackbeard is like the reason he survived so many battles was because he had signed his soul over to the devil. And so that was the whole thing. But just give me something a little bit, just so I'm like, what? How?
I know why. I know why we were never told properly.
Why?
Because Gibbs wasn't around to tell us.
You're right. He was always he was always that guy.
He's the keeper of lore, man. He's just.
They need to release like a book or like give us a like a documentary series, like 5 or 6 episodes of just Kevin McNally as Gibbs giving us like the history of certain pirates, even though there's millions of documentaries out there about pirates that are really good. Also, you can watch, I think Black Flag is the show that was on Stars. This was like 10 years ago that has some really good depictions on real life pirates. I know Blackbeard was one of the main ones.
Well, when we went to, where did we go that we saw? Was it when we went to Alcatraz?
What did we see?
We saw the whole thing about all the pirates.
Yeah, it was Alcatraz. Alcatraz East. They have like a museum here.
Yeah, we went to a museum here. It told about a bunch of pirates and like all their different like flags and everything. It was really neat.
Rogers.
And like,
actually, the funniest thing is when you buy, I think it was the fourth Uncharted game. It gave you a bunch of stickers of all like different pirate flags, and it gives you the names of each one. And I'm like, I don't know who half of these people are.
Just go, dude. Listen,
but it's pretty
just
cool.
Go watch. Just go through the 1,000+ episodes of One Piece.
Yeah,
Blackbeard's way better than that. Everybody's got Jolly Rogers. They're inspired by real pirates and stuff. Just go fucking watch that.
The only ones I like just from these two sheets, the only one I recognize is Anne Bonny.
She was pretty badass too.
And Henry Avery, I heard of him, but they're really cool flags. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to like completely bash this thing. You know, let's get into the plot and we can speak our.
We can bash it as we
We
go.
can speak our minds as we get through it.
He was saying Anne Bonny, and I'm trying to think of what pirate. That there's a pirate in One Piece that's based on pretty much any and every famous pirate that fucking exists. So I just can't think of it.
That's not necessary. We're not talking about One Piece right now.
I'd rather.
Carry
on.
Oh well, this
for the people.
Well, this movie starts with a couple fishermen finding a body in the water. Yeah, they like fish him out. And you're like, this guy's clearly dead. Nope, he's still alive. So they decide to bring this body to the Spanish king, who I guess they can literally just walk up to his doorstep and be like, "We have this," and it's just a dude who's just like, "The fountain of youth, Ponce de Leon."
Fuck that guy. But what about him? No, I'm just kidding.
And this is supposed to be King Ferdinand, who was a real Spanish king. Yep. But yeah, the guy states that he found Ponce de Leon's ship and the location of the Fountain of Youth, which, like we stated before, they literally, like it's literally an Easter egg at the end of at World's End of Jack looking at the map, and it says Fountain of Youth. So we then go. We are now in the courthouse in jolly old London, and a pirate is being tried, and it's supposed to be Jack Sparrow, but nope, it's Gibbs, but they think Gibbs is Jack.
Liar.
I'm like. It's so funny. This was a part that I actually enjoyed. The whole London scene of like everything that happens with Jack in London. I'm like, all right, I don't mind this. But also, like, how the fuck did Jack get all the way to London without being caught? Okay.
And why would they try him in London?
All the way there, right? Don't you have places that they try? They literally show pirates being hung on one of the wherever the other three were based out of.
Yeah, well, like that's the thing. Is like unless
he committed a crime in London.
I know he's a big deal. Like I get it.
Yeah,
I don't think they would ship him all the way over there for that. They'd be like, we need to kill this motherfucker right now.
So the judge comes in, and it's Jack, and you get the whole thing of him and Gibbs going back and forth with each other, and like everyone in the courthouse is like, hang him. Yeah. And he's like, nah, we're just gonna sentence him to life in prison. And everybody's like, come on, man, this is like a sporting event. Yeah. People are just like, hang him.
It was the style at the time.
Yeah.
Hang him or guillotine if you're in France. So,
were they always that loud?
Probably.
Oh, it's crazy.
Women like over there screaming, flopping their tits out and stuff all over the place.
Fans when they pass out.
That one kid, we're gonna miss the hanging. Dad's like, that's not till later. But no, that was a thing though. That was a big deal.
Yeah. But the kid was so excited about that. Like,
oh yeah. I mean, that's just that. What the fuck are you doing back then? This is entertainment.
Yeah, that's true.
So Jack devises a plan to free Gibbs and get back to the sea. He needs to get a ship. He needs to get a crew. Or at least he never says that. It's usually Gibbs who says that, and then he's like, I don't need any of that. And Gibbs is like, oh, well, supposedly you're doing a crew meeting down at whatever tavern it was at like 7:30 or whatever. And he's like,
the titty twister.
Yeah. we got a From Dusk Till Dawn tie in here.
Always, yeah.
So, Jack pays the cart guy to bring him to where he needs to go, but the cart guy gets paid off by the army, and they get sent to the palace where the king is. And Jack, of course, I love that, like, Jack can easily walk, but he's just being dragged like through.
Yeah, I know, like he was knocked unconscious. He's just looking around like.
Well, the funny thing is he gets smoked in the back of the head, and he doesn't become unconscious. He just like he literally like says something to Gibbs. So
I guess, or his hat absorbed the blow. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. But he gets in there and he's waiting for whoever, and this is where you get the pastry. He like scoots his chair over to get the pastry, and of course the king, everybody's coming in, and he throws it up into the air, and it gets attached to the chandelier.
I love it. He's like, that's all he wanted was that pastry.
Yeah. And so the king comes in, played by Richard Griffiths, who would play Uncle Vernon in the Harry Potter franchise.
Mm-hmm.
He is, he's trying to explain, like he's trying to ask Jack different things, and of course, like every time Jack's trying to talk, the chains are like, going about, making a lot of noise.
Dude,
he's
on
like,
purpose.
Could we take those chains off, please? And he pretty much is like, hey, we need you to lead a crew to the Fountain of Youth because you know where it is. And he's like, no, I don't. And he's like, I think you do. But you're not going to be the captain. We have a captain who comes out, but nice and posh. Captain Barbossa. Privateer Captain Barbossa.
Not a pirate.
Not a pirate. And this is where he explained, like, he's got a peg leg now, and he tells Jack quickly that the pearl is gone. And this is when we get a very long escape from Jack, which, to be honest, is usually the bright spots of these movies. Is Jack's like, he does it. It's not as simple of him getting loose and like jumping out a window. He's got to like climb up to the chandelier. He's swinging. He does this and that and all that stuff. He gets his pastry, eats it, goes down, fights a couple guys, comes back, blah, blah, blah. Then he finally, like gets outside.
Don't forget when he hits on Judi Dench.
Oh, I know. That's my next note.
Oh, sorry. I apologize.
So he jumps onto a carriage, gets in there, and who is it but Dame Judi Dench? And it looks like he's going to gnaw on that ear, but actually he steals her earring, but she's all like, oh boy.
Give me some of that low, but
I don't know how I missed her though, because I thought that part was hilarious. I'm like, is he whispering something to her? And then she's like, oh.
She was like, oh my goodness.
I
need to change my knickers when I get home.
All 17 layers. Yeah, is that all? Like, what the fuck, dude?
Oh goodness. We get a horse and buggy chase, which is so fun. It's literally like, what's a car chase in 1750? Horse and buggies. Right? Yeah.
See, that is exactly what I thought about. And then all I could think of when he gets on top of the two is the one movie where the guy's on top of the trucks and they start going. They
go to separate.
I was just waiting for him to have to do a split.
I'm just waiting for the Headless Horseman. Like, we're on movie.
Yeah,
we've done this before. Get out
of here. It was better the last time.
Yes. And this is when, he gets he jumps off the carriage, and there's one guy back there who's gonna shoot him, but who saves him? But dear old dad, Captain Teague, again played by Keith Richards.
He just looks so rough.
Oh, he's looked rough for like 40 years.
I saw them drugs.
I mean, clearly. I'm not going to advocate for drugs, but clearly whatever drugs Keith Richards and all of the Rolling Stones, Ozzy Osbourne, whatever they were doing, clearly did nothing to them. Well, just made them look a little rough.
I think it's you go through it and you eventually reach a threshold where you've had so much, it's just the same as embalming fluid. It just keeps you alive.
And before anyone gets pissed off that we just said that, I do not advocate for doing drugs. Don't do drugs.
No.
They're bad. They're bad.
It was just that whole
There'll be that one person who hears us say that, and I'll be like, 1-star review.
It was all the hair bands from 70s, 80s.
But they're all so fucking alive. Like, what the hell?
I know. And they have been through some shit.
Yeah. So Jack and Dad, they have a convo about the fountain. They talk about how there's a ritual that needs to be performed. Jack really doesn't know the ritual. But he's told that there are 2 chalices that are on De Leon's ship, and he's going to need those. And of course, they share a drink. I love when he turns around to look at something. He turns back, and his dad's gone.
His dad's Batman.
I was just going to say that. So yeah, we then go into, Jack goes into a room, and he meets another Jack, somebody impersonating him. And this is when we meet Angelica, played by Penelope Cruz. I guess they had some sort of pretty intense relationship back in the day, which just, this is one aspect of it. I was like, this goes on too long and we get too much information that goes nowhere.
Seems to be a common trait in these movies.
Yeah, I guess they almost got married. That was the whole thing. I don't know.
God.
And I was like, you cannot convince me in any way, shape, or form that Jack Sparrow is ever considered getting married. This would just be.
This story was. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
He would have been married, but he would have never come back. He would have sailed away and never come back.
Two things, because I got to get my quote in. First off, the whole concept of somebody going to marry someone that you wouldn't think would get married and runs off was done way better in the newest Puss in Boots film.
Yes.
Way fucking better.
Yes.
Secondly, thinking back to the Dame Judi Dench scene. I don't know the technical term for this, so I need our audience or any of y'all to chime in. If when a dude gets worked up but nothing happens, it's called cock teasing. For a woman, is it clam teasing?
What the fuck? What the hell?
Because Dame Judi Dench, he nibbled her low, but she's like, oh yeah, and he just left her. I was like, is that clam teasing? You're the expert here. You tell me. I'm just kidding.
About to leave.
I'm
audience.
I'm envisioning all of these awful reviews for our show. I can see them being written. I can see them being typed on the computer right now so angrily. They do it one at a time with one finger.
I just want to let you guys know when
break a screen on their phone.
When we start recording these, I do not think of these ahead of time. They literally happen while we're talking.
That's what this show's all about, people. We don't plan anything. I write my notes. That's the best you're getting, and I look up some facts on IMDb. But
that's video viewers, if you during the Dame Judi Dench conversation earlier, you will see me laugh to myself. That was the moment that thought crossed my mind. So. But carry on. But the first thing, go ahead. Yes, carry on.
Dang it, now all I can think of is clam bake.
Jesus Christ.
New England clam chowder. No. Is it the red one or the white one?
It's the white one, guys. Manhattan clam chowder is the red one.
I just had to bring
it's a favorite part of the month.
No. Fucking right here, dude. This is full circle. Fuck.
What are we doing here, people? What are we doing?
Let's continue this off-trail adventure. I made an Ace Ventura reference. That was really good. Flicks and Friends just brought up the fact that they're watching Ace Ventura 2 earlier.
Yeah.
Because I was talking about shit. It's all full circle. I'm telling you.
Jesus Christ.
Even with the happening. The blooding.
So you find out that Angela,
keep going.
What the fuck is her name? Is it Angelina or is it Angelica? Angelica.
Like Rugrats.
Jesus.
Because all I could think of was Rugrats.
Yeah, she's trying to find the fountain too, and she needs Jack's help. He gets darted, and of course you got some big old zombie looking fellow who's bloop. And you also find out that mermaids are involved in the ritual because that's the last thing he hears before he gets darted. So Gibbs is then blackmailed by Barbossa to help him find Jack. I love the whole thing where Barbossa throws him a line and he's like, "Oh, this is pretty dark. You're making, someone tie their own noose." Mm-hmm. He's like, "Well, this doesn't have to happen if you just help me." He's like, "Oh, okay." And it's the whole thing where he needs to show him where the fountain is, and he's got the map. And he ends up burning it, and the only way Gibbs can get out of dying is, well, you're gonna need me because I memorized that map before I burned it. And Barbossa's like, "You bastard." I also don't think Barbossa would have killed him. Like I said, Barbossa, he's not nearly as ruthless as a lot of the pirates that we've seen in these movies. I feel like he puts on a facade most of the time. He's very strong, and he has to look tough in front of all the other pirates. Or not the pirates, but all the other Navy officers that are there.
Yeah. He's an anti-hero.
Yeah.
100%.
So Jack wakes up and he finds out he's aboard the Queen Anne's Revenge. And he's like, oh, great. We find out that all of Blackbeard's crew are zombified. It's pretty much so he has control over them. And also they can foresee the future as well, because he talks about how the quartermaster saw his death or saw how he's going to die by the one-legged man. That was the whole thing.
I think that's just an excuse to have that as a thread, but I don't ever remember really much future sight, clairvoyant shit in this movie outside of the one-legged man bit.
Yeah, I don't know.
They having cloudy eyes. I just assumed that was.
Well, this is more traditional Haitian zombies, not Romero.
No, zombies.
For viewers, not you.
No, I get it, but I just assumed that was because they were zombified, and not. I don't know. Maybe they could access that. I don't.
Man.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's the case.
I'm just trying to make it make sense. It still doesn't.
This movie doesn't make a lot of it. We also find Philip, or Bible Boy, as I called him in my notes. He's strung up to the mast. And it was like, oh, I don't want to be that guy. Angelica, we find out, is Blackbeard's daughter, but also she tells Jack that she's not really his daughter. She's just trying to, trick him into getting her to go to the fountain. Whatever. Well, I know it's a whole ploy to get the ship. But he needs to get to the fountain because there's a prophecy about how a one-legged man is going to kill him and blah, blah, blah. We already talked about that. The Spaniards show up.
Yes,
we're back with Barbosa, but the Spaniards show up and they go right by him, and they were all prepared to fight him. And they're like, well, they didn't even look over here, so there's no point in fighting them. They do not give a shit about us.
Mm-hmm.
We then are back with Jack, and he meets up with the crew downstairs, and they try to start a mutiny. And this is when the crew goes up. They fight the zombies up there, and this is when Blackbeard makes his appearance. And I stated earlier in this series that this entry was probably my favorite entry of a villain, and watching it again, I have to change my opinion. It was fine. The only
even looking at him though.
The only cool thing about his entry is when he comes out and he's got his beard, end of his beard is, lit up, which is the whole Blackbeard legend. But other than that, he just doesn't feel like Blackbeard.
No, he does not menacing. He's not really imposing. He doesn't chew up the scenery.
I wasn't even watching him. I was more focused on what Jack was doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And you find out he can control his ship, everything about it, with his gigantic sword. This sword is awkward looking. I just ugh. I wouldn't want to carry that thing around. That thing is
Definitely.
3 swords fused together. It's so wide.
It's definitely one of those. It's ooh, how heavy is that?
Yeah.
That, you couldn't wield that easily.
So Philip is cut down, and he stands up to Blackbeard. He throws all of his religion things at him, and then Jack is also spared, but then they kill the cook because he was the one who was supposed to be on watch. And so we get this whole thing where, well, for one, all the crew gets wrapped up in the lines on the ship, and you get that whole thing, which, to be honest, is kind of cool. I kind of like that whole thing where the ship comes alive and it attacks everybody, but no one dies, which I think would have been a more interesting thing. But we see the cook gets put on a little dinghy, and he starts rowing out, and I guess Blackbeard has a gigantic flamethrower at the end of the ship.
So cool.
No, we only see once.
Yep. At least with the Flying Dutchman and those triple cannons on the front, we got to see those a bunch of times. That was cool.
And when he brought forth the Kraken, he had the big.
Well, actually, no. This is it. We do get to see this one more time. The flame, and it was used better in the scene than in the later scene. But he the guy's barbecued, and everybody's watching, and oh my God, Blackbeard, he's so scary. So Blackbeard and Jack, they have a conversation about the fountain, and Angelica, and Jack's trying to be she's not who you think she is. She's not really your daughter. Blah blah blah. And this is when also Blackbeard has a voodoo doll of Jack that he kind of uses to carve a emblem on his chest. That also never comes back.
Nope.
We're then back with Barbosa and his crew. They're a little wary about White Cat Bay because this is where all the mermaids live, and this is scary. It's we don't want to go there. There be mermaids, and not the ones that sing on rocks.
But they sing.
Just not on the rocks, okay? It's just
not on the rocks.
So, I just love the one guy who's just every man for themselves, and just jumps off the side of the boat. I'm
everybody's man overboard. Barbossa's fuck him.
Yeah, I would have been the same way. I'm what? No, you're not coming back on. Screw you, buddy.
Yeah.
At least if you're going to bail, do it closer to land.
Right?
Where are you going?
I guess he would just rather die floating in the ocean than die by mermaids. So Jack and Angelica, they have a weird, seductive conversation on the boat where they're like rolling all over each other, but talking about the ritual to the fountain. And yeah, you know, they talk about the fact of like they were so close to getting married, but Jack, you know, left her. And I'm like, oh, we don't need this backstory for Jack. It's not interesting. So she then brings him to a room and shows him the black pearl. It's in a. It's like, why is it in a bottle? And we also don't get told how this works. They're just ships in bottles. No explanation of why. Is that something that Blackbeard can do? Why is Blackbeard just in this movie? Never explained in any of the prior ones. I think it would have been really cool if he was at least mentioned in some sort of passing about like Blackbeard. Beware of that guy.
They could have even mentioned him in the last one when they were talking about or was it the last one where they were talking about all the pirates meeting or whatever?
Yeah.
They could have just said, "Oh, he denied the request or whatever, and he's just doing his thing." Like they could have even just mentioned him like that, just to know that he's a part of this.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, what about Black? Like when they were talking about needing more help. What about Blackbeard? Like, nah, he'll kill us too. Blah 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 blah. Because obviously they said he attacks other pirates and doesn't give a shit. So
yeah, like they could have just brought him in just in passing as a.
Yeah, that's all they would need. That literally that like couple throwaway lines. And you either do it or you don't.
Also, Monkey Jack's in there in the bottle.
I saw him. He's so scared.
He's even scarier in miniature. I like that line. She also states that she's the actual daughter of Blackbeard. I was like, what are we doing? And they then have arrived at Whitecap Bay. They go to the shore. There's this really cool old lighthouse that they go up to, and it's been the castle light. It's all from more like whale oil.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the whole, thing with them, activating it. And then you got the crew that's on the boats because they're supposed to be the bait for the mermaids. Mm-hmm. And you get the whole backstory about mermaids, the fact of like, yeah, they'll, drag you in, seduce you, and then they'll literally attack you, drag you to the bottom, and eat you. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. It's you don't really, I don't know. Somebody will have to, state it in the comments, but I don't know of any other movie where mermaids are like evil like this that came out before this. But I like the mermaids. I like the what they do with the mermaids in this. Like they're not like the Little Mermaid mermaids or Peter Pan or like any of those. They're animals.
Imagine the conversation between the different like pirates and stuff. Like, yeah, dude, mermaids are horrible. Like, oh, they can't be that bad. Yeah, they'll suck your dick off. Well, that doesn't sound terrible. No, they'll suck your dick off. Like, oh,
wow,
that's entirely different. That comma makes all the difference.
So yeah, the Scrum has to sing to lure the mermaid in. The mermaids sing as well. And then, of course, Scrum is just like, I don't care. I want a kiss from a mermaid. And he leans in, and this is where you get like he like just gets under the water and he sees she has fangs. I was like, okay. And this is when all the chaos happens. Like they're jumping around, snagging people and, all that. This is when Blackbeard uses the ship, the flamethrower at the front of the ship to push the mermaids to shore. I liked how it was used in the scene, but then, we never see it again. They also, the mermaids have like a weird like whip thing too that they use to like drag people that are on the shore, and it's a whole thing. Yeah. This is when Jack has to save Angelica because she got snagged by one of the mermaids. Jack's big idea is he's going to go up and he's going to blow up the lighthouse, which is cool. Philip gets one of the mermaids. Like one of the mermaids like attacks him, brings him in, and then like it gets a bunch of rubble landed on it, so it's stuck. And I love this is my favorite line of the entire movie is when Jack comes out of the water after everything is all said and done, and he's just like, "Did anybody see that? Because I will not be doing that again."
Yes.
We're back with Barbossa and this crew as they are right on their tail. I I was kind of confused about this. So the mermaids were able to sink a massive ship.
Yeah.
What? Okay.
Apparently they just attacked in swarms.
Yeah.
Like, fuck them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Barbossa doesn't give a flying fuck about it. We then are back to Jack and the gang as they travel through the jungle. Angelica explains the process yet again. We get told so many times the whole ritual behind the Fountain of Youth. It gets tiring. I'm like, I get it. All right. I don't even need to write it down anymore. You've said it so many times. It's instilled into my brain. Also, we get a really bad snake that she grabs out of the water. I was like, ooh, doesn't even look like she's grabbing it. And it's so big. That is a fat coral snake.
Yeah, they don't get that big.
Coral snakes do not get that big. We then get to a cliff side where I'm guessing there used to be a bridge, but there's just a cliff. Jack is told he's got to go down. Angelica tries to do it herself, but then you get the whole thing with the pistols. It's like the Russian roulette with the different pistols. And it's a whole thing because it's one of those things where you constantly are seeing that Blackbeard doesn't actually care about her. He's just using her as a leverage for the end game. And so you get the whole thing where, Jack finally goes and she's like, you weren't really going to shoot me, were you? And he kind of just blows it off.
Yep. That's what we talked about. There's so many of these. We're just like, dude, come on.
They're trying to get us to care about the relationship between Blackbeard and Angelica, but it's like, I don't care at all. Like, she just is here I don't even know why. Barbossa collects some poison dart frogs, which this actually leads into something that's actually interesting. Yeah. We then see
he has a hobby now.
Yeah,
apparently
I love it.
he's a
got
herpetologist.
The frogs in a jar. Yeah, he calls them poison toads, and I was like, no, that's not what they are.
That may be just slang they use.
Probably, yeah. It probably sounded cooler to say toads for Jeffrey Rush in that awesome accent he uses instead of frogs. Jack finds the Santiago. It is literally embedded into the side of a mountain, and so he's got to go up there. And I love how he's talking about it. He's just like, that's the Santiago, the Ponce de Leon ship. And he turns around and he's like, oh, yeah, there's no one here.
Yeah. Little on the nose. I like it.
So we then find out as we go back to... So the mermaid gets caught by Philip. Well, sort of. But the rest of the crew, they capture the mermaid. They got to carry her in like a glass case, which was mentioned earlier in the movie. It was like, hey, what's that glass case for? And you kind of don't really get told the reasoning. But the case crashes, and so she spills out. And then because she's on land, she can grow legs. And I was like, she didn't even need to give her voice up to Ursula.
Right?
I know, wow. Just throw her in the middle of the jungle.
Apparently. I was like, did Ariel ever even try to just flop on land and see if her legs grew?
No,
we wouldn't even had a movie.
Fucking Trident Gun wouldn't let her. It's like nobody can go on land. Fucking, you ain't got no damn legs.
Crazy thing to connect it all, right? So Penelope Cruz is married to Javier Bardem, who plays King Triton. Is it Triton in Little Mermaid? And he directed both, and of course, this movie and The Little Mermaid are directed by Rob Marshall. Javier Bardem will show up next week as the villain of the next Pirates movie. So
well, there you go.
There you go. So Philip and the mermaid talk, and he names her Serena, which I guess is just Spanish for mermaid.
You're inventive.
They're technically sirens.
Yes.
So
yes.
I could see.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
maybe
Spanish,
it's Spanish for siren. I don't know.
But I could see that.
So Jack and Barbossa, they meet on the Santiago. I like the whole thing where the ship is like unbalanced, so they have to the ship keeps rocking back and forth, so they hang out in Ponce de Leon's bed with the body of Ponce de Leon, who's and it is pretty cool. It is pretty creepy though when Jack goes to take the map and the head turns.
Yep.
Don't touch the map.
Touch the map. And then he puts the map down, the head goes back. You're like, oh.
Yep.
All right. And they find out that the Spanish have already taken the chalices. They already did their thing. Because there's no shit. Like, they're not doing all this extra bullshit that all these pirates are doing. They got a plan. They're going here, doing this, and they're good.
Yep.
So Jack then joins up with Barbossa. We then go back and Blackbeard, he's just so mean. He threatens the mermaid for a tear, and she won't cry, so he kills Philip to try to get one, and still nothing. Jack and Barbossa, they get the chalices from the Spanish. They go into like one of the camps. They steal the chalices, but they get caught. We find out Philip is alive. I don't know how, but he's alive.
He got darted.
Oh, that's right.
It was the guy that killed him. Put the dart on
yeah,
the
okay, that's right. I remember him taking that out. But yeah,
it looked like he cut his throat.
Yeah. So he goes back to Serena, who's tied up, and tries to untie her and blah, blah, blah. But then, she starts to cry, and it was kind of a whole ploy thing. Like, it was the whole plan. And so, of course, Serena's mad at him because she thinks that he screwed her over. It's the whole thing.
Much stronger.
And
Monsters Inc. would have taught you that.
And Blackbeard just plans on killing her anyways. Like the spot that they go to, it's got all the skeletons of dead mermaids that they tried to use for the ritual.
Yep.
So Jack and Barbossa, they are tied up after getting caught by the Spanish. Barbossa's peg leg is actually a keg full of delicious rum. But also this is where Barbossa spills about how he lost the pearl. Pretty much it's just like Blackbeard is ruthless. Like, that's the whole premise. It's like Blackbeard came in on us. There was no, option for parlay. There was nothing. He just came in and, he's, I guess, and this is why none of the crew from the Black Pearl is in this movie, is because technically, I guess they're all dead. And yeah, and of course, I guess a line wrapped around his leg to the point where he had to cut off his own leg to save himself. And then the pearl gets put in a bottle. And his whole reason behind joining the King's Navy was to do exactly, like, he doesn't care about the fountain. He just wants to kill Blackbeard.
Yeah, it's a means to an end for him.
I'm
That's
like,
all
it's okay, I guess. It ties into it. And Jeffrey Rush, I can never complain about watching him perform.
He did some of his better acting of this movie in that scene.
Yes, absolutely. So Jack escapes up the tree. We also, I do like the music that they do in this. It's like the regular Pirates theme, but it's got the guitar, like the Spanish guitar playing in the back.
Yeah.
Which is really well done. Who's the performer? Rodrigo and Gabriela were the artists who added that little Spanish flair to the Pirates theme. And Hans Zimmer came back to do the score. So that's pretty cool. So we then see that Barbossa gets set free by his Navy guys. And then Jack, I like the whole thing where Jack rounds up all the Spaniards, and they just ties them up to the tree.
Yeah.
So Jack gives Blackbeard the chalices, and Gibbs has to use the compass to get to freedom, and then you don't see Gibbs till the end of the movie, and I'm like, well, okay, cool.
Yeah, because he makes that deal with him. He's like, you can have the chalices under these specific conditions, which are really simple ones. And apparently, I don't think Blackbeard, he's like, is that it?
Yeah.
Like he thought he was going to wager for more than what he did.
Yeah.
And which obviously Jack has a plan, but it seemed like kind of like, all right, Gibbs, you get out of here, get to safety,
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, here you go, dude.
So as Jack is walking through the jungle, he notices that the water at this point is going up. It's like doing unnatural things, so that he knows exactly where he needs to go. I love it when they get into the cave, and you got the one guy who picks off this one small piece of a stalagmite, and then another one falls and impales the guy behind him.
Yeah.
Now, stalagmite, is that the one on the floor or on the ceiling?
I think it's on the floor.
Stalagmite is on the floor. Stalactite is on, because I always remember it. Stalactite is top, stalagmite is bottom, because G.
I'm going to blame my phone for that, because I think I tried to put tight and it's changed it to mite, so I'm blaming you, phone.
I always remembered that. I read it in a book, and I was like, ooh, I haven't forgotten it since.
So I love it, Jack tries to do the thing where he puts the slams two chalices together, and it doesn't work. And then, of course, the entire time Penelope Cruz's character is just like, do you even know what you're doing? Do you even know what it is? And I'm just like, can you please just step back for a second? Just let me do my thing. And then he notices it's got the words on it. And it says Aqua de Vida. And then I put Livin de Vida Loca.
Yeah, absolutely.
The fountain of youth.
All I could think was Inagata de Vida. And I was like, no, that's
Vida,
wrong.
baby.
Ball.
That is wrong.
What does that song even mean? Not even the artists know what that song means.
Iron Butterfly, dude. Listen, it was an episode of The Simpsons where Bart passed it off as a church hymn, and they all sung it in church.
The first time I ever heard that song, side note, is from Freddy's Dead. Sixth entry in the Nightmare on Elm Street. It's one of my favorite ones.
First time I heard that song was on the radio because I grew up listening to music like that. So.
It was Freddy's Dead, and probably I think it was in an episode of Home Improvement.
Nice.
Probably.
So when they get into the Fountain of Youth, when they find it, they get in there, which the whole process is, like when he reads the words, the Aqua de Vida, it like opens up this like water portal that like sucks him in.
Yeah,
I
that's how you
hate
get in.
this
That's weird.
because of the little water droplet that goes up, but then you got him climbing on the shoulders of this dude. It's so awkward. You're like, he's definitely not climbing on his shoulders.
Yeah.
Like, you can kind of see it off to the side. I'm like, yeah, they could have just not shown that at all.
So they finally get in there, and the music changes, and it sounds very Danny Elfman. I felt like I was in a Tim Burton movie for a bit. I was like, this music just sounds so Tim Burton like. Like, where are we right now? Did Hans Zimmer take the day off, and Danny Elfman was like, I'll fill in for the day? Jack
just opened a door.
It was weird.
He went to a different tree.
Yeah, open the key. Oh, the Fountain of Youth door.
Yes.
So, and then Barbossa shows up out of the shadows, and it won't be the first time or the last time that this shot is done. And he says his things about how he wants revenge on Blackbeard, and so they start to fight.
To stay behind though, because not everybody was able to get in.
Yeah, there had to be somebody left behind.
Somebody had to be left behind.
Like,
how did everybody?
Hey!
Hello?
How did everybody find this?
Those X amount of people that were left behind. Like, this guy's here, and then everybody else showed up. I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, I'm just waiting for everybody up top, man.
Yeah. So everybody's fighting. I like how Jack tries to get it so it's just Barbossa and Blackbeard fighting, but then we're gonna fight. So that all happens. Philip gets sliced open, and he just runs away. All right, bye, Philip. Your character is kind of pointless. Jack, Scrum, and Angelica, they fight over the tear, which is, it's a cool scene, and the whole thing where they're like flipping between the swords and the tear, and they're doing all this crazy stuff. And then we go back to Philip, who releases Serena, and of course she just bolts away, and you're just like, yeah, she's just mad. She's mad. She doesn't want you, Philip. You're just gonna have to get over it.
She needs to go eat her pint of ice cream and cry and watch her sappy movie.
Yeah,
and just leave her alone.
And you can see the hurt in his face. He's just like, I saved you.
What did I do?
I didn't do anything wrong. Serena, go back.
And he just looks down. He's like, oh, so that's what a liver looks like. And just follow him.
Oh God. So then the Spanish show up out of the shadows. It's literally the same shot as we saw Barbossa and his crew, but it's the Spaniards coming out.
No one suspects the Spanish Inquisition.
Like, seriously, they got in awful quick. Like,
they
just roll the fuck up.
Did they jump?
Banners and everything.
Well, the king didn't have to do shit. All right.
Well, of course he didn't, but he brought a lot of people.
Well, because they're all well organized. They got this shit figured out. Like,
they're like, here, jump.
So the Spanish come in, and they think they're going to be using the Fountain of Youth, but instead it's like, no one should ever use this. And he smashes the chalices, throws them to the side, and then makes his crew destroy the fountain.
Yeah, because no one can grant eternal life but God himself.
Yep.
So which
definitely
is
not what I thought was going to happen.
No, it was like because they brought up about them being Catholic earlier, which was true. There was before, I think it was before what this film. There was an attempted Catholic uprising in Britain, but obviously that failed miserably. So yeah, that's why they don't like Catholics apparently.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So Barbossa gets a stab in on Blackbeard with his poison lathed sword. As he mentioned earlier, he just wants to drive that poison sword into his heart. And then, of course, Angelica comes over to pull the sword out and slices her hand open. I was like, how do you pull a sword out? Wouldn't you just pull it by the hand? Whatever.
Even Jack tried to stop her.
He's like there's poison. And he's like, why are you grabbing the blade? What's wrong with you?
Hello? It has a handle for a reason.
It's a plot,
As good as a sword fighter as she was, because she could fight against Jack, not saying that he's the best, but she fought against him.
Yeah.
And she grabs the blade? Like, what?
Yeah, you would think that, like, you could have done this differently. Like, when she's, like, goes to take the blade out of her dad, like, she gets hit by somebody else because she ends up cutting herself out of accident. That would have made more sense than how she did that.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It's like she's never seen a sword before. So yeah, they're both dying. And so Barbossa then takes Blackbeard's sword and it takes his crew and just gets the fuck out of there.
Well, he got what he needed. There was no point for him to be there. He's like, fuck you bitches. We got what we wanted.
Yeah. Bye.
So Jack then has to find the chalices, which Serena just shows up with the chalices. She's like, don't waste my tear. And he's like, aye. And takes them, fills it up with the little bit of drop of water coming from the fountain that he can get, drops the tear in one, and then brings it over. And of course, it's supposed to show you how evil and egotistical Blackbeard is. He tells him the rules and, tries to even tell Blackbeard, like, wouldn't you want to, you could redeem yourself by saving your daughter. And he's like, fuck that. And takes the cup that he thinks has the tear in it. And then this is when we get a Jack moment, like the Jack we all know and love, where he walks away and then goes, oh, maybe it was the other way around. And of course, Angelica gets pissed off
which makes no sense.
No. And then, but I mean, we get a really cool, I really like this effect of the water from the fountain coming out and like surrounding him and like just breaking him down to his bones. And I like the whole thing where he's like reaching out and it's his skeleton hand and he just collapses.
He's just a desperate piece of shit.
Yep.
I'm just surprised that nobody like tried to take his ring or something. Like,
oh yeah. Sure. Oh, Jack was, I would have looted that body right after. Come on. So yeah, so we then the way they shot these scenes are weird. Does it just take, how long was the journey from the ship to the Fountain of Youth? Because it feels like Barbossa got back to the ship after Jack put Angelica on the island. I was like, what? All right. So Jack puts Angelica on one of those lonely islands, and gives her the pistol with one shot. And of course, you get the whole thing where she's trying to like persuade him not to do it. And I think it's pretty funny that they added this, especially since she was pregnant. It's like, oh, I'm with child and it's yours. And he's like, I don't think we ever did that.
Yeah. He's like, oh.
Yeah. And then of course she shoots the shot and he's like, you missed.
But remember that.
Yep. And she, and Jack goes away. And then we get to see Barbossa turn back into the Barbossa we all know and love. He gets back into his outfit with this cool hat with a feather. And does the sword thing and gets the ship to go, and then he's back.
And even after before that, with all the Jack stuff, he's even telling her like, "Listen, you don't have to shoot yourself." I said, he's like, "It's a heavily trafficked area by ships. Just signal a ship; they'll come pick you up."
Yeah,
like he's like giving her every out possible, and then she's still bitching about him killing, which he didn't. Well, he kind of did, but he set it up so he would fuck himself over because he knew exactly how he was.
Yeah.
And she's like, "I was just my dad." Well, your dad doesn't matter. He was a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
You barely knew.
You still wanted to save your dad, even though he screwed you. He tried to screw you over.
And I know some people are like that. I get it. Like there's really people like this. No.
So, yeah, and then we get Jack meeting back up with Gibbs, and Gibbs has got all the ships that are in the bottles, and yeah, they're gonna go try to figure out how to get the pearl out of there.
I love how he says, "Do you know how to get this out of here?" And he starts naming off these random things, like something about a goat. And I'm
and he's like, I know a guy with a goat, and he's like, I can handle the.
Yeah. That was a funny part.
That was good. I liked it. Yeah, and that's it. That's the end of the movie, and then there is a post-credit scene. There's been a post-credit scene in every one of these movies. It is.
That's what you were waiting for after
spoiler alert, it does not lead to anything that happens in the fifth movie. It's Angelica sitting on the island, and she finds the Jack voodoo doll.
Irrelevant.
There we go.
But why would it be there? It got thrown off the cliff.
I don't know, Dan.
That doesn't make any sense.
It washed up on its shore somehow, and a crab got it or something.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. Oh, let's pull up these lovely comments.
It just doesn't make me look forward to the next one.
I'm gonna say right now, I've only seen it once. No, maybe I've seen it twice. I think the next one is a better movie.
Okay.
I hope so.
It makes me feel a little bit better.
I mean, as long as it's
I think the story is slightly better. I think the villain is more. I like his reasonings behind what he does, and I think it looks better. Like it's like the cinematography looked better. Like, I'm not saying this movie looks bad visually. I think it's gorgeous because it is on location. This is filmed on Hawaii, a beautiful islands. Beautiful islands is what I meant to say. It didn't have that same flair as the last few, where I think this next one kind of goes back to it. All right, well, we got some comments over on Twitter, as we do every single week. Everybody, make sure you check your Instagram, you check your Twitter if you follow us over at Dissect That Film. Every week, whatever day I watch the movie, Angela posts it too. We ask for your comments on what your thoughts are on whatever movie we're covering. The Pirates of the Caribbean franchise has been kind of light on the comments. So which is hey, if you want to comment, cool. If you don't, whatever. But we do have Darren from NostalgiaCast who has commented on every single one of these. We're going to start off with his. He says, I hope that I'm not becoming the guy that Dissect That Film listeners can depend on to expound on the Pirates movies. But this one ain't very good. Claflin, who played Philip, and Burgess Frisbee, who was Serena, are no bloomin' Knightley. 100%. Yeah. And I had that real weird feeling that they were trying to do that. And making Jack the actual protagonist is weird. It just doesn't work.
No.
I agree.
We talked about. It wasn't enough of a good enough of a supporting cast to help him through the movie.
Our next one is from Bill Reed's Bad Reviews, who says the first three are absolute treasure. Full pirate pun intended. And everything after that, I just forgot. I feel like most people did. Our next one is from Dewey Podmaster, who said, I was worn out on the franchise when this one came out and never saw it.
Wow. Okay. Fair enough.
There we go. Next one is Kevin the Critic, who said, I saw it once and liked it. I haven't revisited it since 2011. Just leave it that way.
Yes, please do.
And the last one is from Streaming Wasteland, who said, well, now I have something to listen to. And I'm hoping that's our episode. I
hope so.
Yes. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes.
I'm gonna just double check Instagram. I don't think we had anything over there, but
I was gonna say, I got 2 on mine.
All right, yeah, nothing on Instagram. So go ahead.
So I put, does this movie live up to the last 3? Darren says no.
Just no.
Yeah,
nothing else.
I saw that. Yeah, that's funny.
And then I got one from Movie Mobster that says it's okay, but mostly no.
Yeah.
So
we concur.
I feel that way.
It's very forgettable. It's just a very forgettable movie.
It's like those few scenes that, you really enjoy, but the rest is like, meh.
Doesn't make up for it.
Like,
yeah, that's about it, guys. That is Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. We have one more Pirates movie to cover, which we will be covering next week for episode 113, which is Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, which is just a lovely tongue twister. Like I said, this was one that came out that was kind of just like a shock. Like I was like, oh, I didn't even realize we were doing another one of these.
Right.
But But yeah, I'm excited to revisit it. Like I said, I do remember enjoying it. I thought it was way better than I was expecting it to be. So I'm excited to see what you guys think going in as your first watch. But yeah, it's crazy. We're already entering our final week of another franchise, which is wild to think. And we're gonna do our rankings next week. We're gonna go through the entire franchise at the end of next week's episode, and we're gonna rank all of these because I feel like we're all gonna have different lists, but it's gonna be a weird one to say the least when we go through the rankings. And then after that, I'll just announce it now, and I'll say it again next week's episode. After we finish up Pirates of the Caribbean, we are bringing back a good friend who hasn't been on the show in a while. She is someone who journeyed with me for 6 weeks to talk about the Resident Evil franchise. And since there is one more Resident Evil movie out there, I figured let's get this baby out of the way. And there's no better person to bring back but our good friend Leanne, aka Piggy, because when I think of Resident Evil and talking about anything Resident Evil, well, we got Dan. I know Dan's a big fan of Resident Evil, but Piggy was the person that we brought on those original movies. So I'm excited to bring her back for this and to have her back on the show, because I think the last time she was on was for Child's Play that we did for our first round of Halloween movies in 2021. So it's been a long time since she's been on the show, but I'm very excited to bring her back. We'll talk about it again next week at the end of next week's episode. So, and then, it's just, we got a lot of stuff going on. If you guys haven't yet, make sure to go over to our Patreon, check it out. We have 2 tiers now. We have a $1 tier, which will get you our episodes early. And then we have a $5 tier, which will have, that perk. Plus we're going to have bonus episodes. We're going to have commentary tracks. We have a Patreon exclusive show that is, by the time you listen, might already be in the works, but we got things working on for an exclusive show, which is going to be very exciting. We got a lot of content that we feel is worth that $5 that you'd be giving us. So make sure to check that out. We appreciate everybody. Do you guys have anything you want to add before we get the heck out of here?
Nope.
All right, guys. Until next time, I am Brett Parker. That is Dan and Angelo of DNA Gaming. We are Dissect That Film, and this has been the Dissect That Film podcast, episode 112. We'll see you all again next time. Bye-bye.